but I've got this long list of swims which I still want to do.
You made you more than 10 then.
Yes, but really epic ones. Everyone talks about good to great.
Yes.
No. You want to be talking about what is going to be really epic. You know when it's going to be epic. Thousands and thousands of years ago. And so to swim there is to swim through history. Literally. We need to learn how to become good ancestors.
So you're like a sheep guy now?
Yeah.
You go to England. So. You go to England for like a couple weeks or something, and now you're like a sheep guy.
I'm already on like the farm trends. I mean, you've seen all the hyperstitious chicken stuff going on.
Oh, geez, right? You're like Mr. Chicken Guy now.
I'm a chicken guy.
You were on the like homesteading train way before lots of people. You were deep in it.
I don't know if I'm a homesteader. If I am a homesteader, I'm the worst homesteader there ever was.
Lots of people are like losing their minds right now with this whole tariff stuff, which by the way, if you haven't caught it already, it's on the After Dark feed. So you have to be a Plus member. Womp womp. Sorry to tell you. We've already covered it, but you're going to have to go get, if you need the little fix, we probably have a teaser on the main feed on the podcast. So if you need a little 5 or 7 minute fix, go check out the teaser. But we do cover tariffs in depth, both on our newsletter, on the census, and we've been covering all of Howard Lutnick's moves, good and bad, or whatever in between. We've been covering that. I don't know about you. I've got it around here somewhere. I did bring my little screwdriver I'm prepared. My little screwdriver.
You have a million screws though.
I've got my little screwdrivers. I'm ready. I'm ready for my millions of screws. I'm ready, Howard, for my new jobs that you're giving me. But we've been covering that on our 100 Days series, 100 Days of Commerce. So we have covered quite a bit of the tariff talk. But you, Brian, you were prepared for the new caretaker generation of the when we're post industrial.
Yeah, we're all just either in factories or making content in the content mines because
that's it.
That's all there is to do.
Yeah, but like we're bringing farming back, and you've been doing that for a long time. But you went to England. You went and you somehow became fascinated with sheep infrastructure or something.
Of course, yes. Well, naturally. So Optimove Connect is the conference I went out for. We are about to get into 2 different interviews that I did. I'm super excited about both. I did at the conference, and Optimove has been doing some incredible stuff in the marketing automation, marketing world of software.
I thought you were going to say in the sheep industry, the sheep herding industry.
Herding industry. So where this plays in is, of course, I got the chance to head out to the Cotswolds for the weekend before I went to their conference, which was my first time in the Cotswolds. Can't say I was disappointed. It was everything it was built to be. I did a lot of hiking around. I probably put in like 10 miles a day hiking from village to village, went carless, and just got a sense of the place by kind of hiking through it and going from village to village and pub to pub. But what was really interesting as I was exploring there on my feet, having not amputated them through the invention of the car, I found them to be adorable, and part of that cuteness had to do with the way the infrastructure was set up. The thing is, the Cotswolds were quite the agricultural center. They made all their money on wool, and they rose to power. Like they were actually a very powerful, very wealthy area for a long time, and they built these towns with these narrow little passages for pushing sheep through so they could count them as they came into the market square. And of course, now we find all this very charming. And I did, because there's cute little lanes everywhere. And you can walk back behind buildings and in little feel like alleys and so on. And all the buildings are very quaint, and it feels very fairy tale-ish. But that actually, the point of that was functional. It was infrastructure that was necessary for these towns to survive and to grow and become rich. Of course, then along comes cotton, and the wool's trade is destroyed in many ways.
Wow.
And so all this infrastructure becomes effectively like antiquated. It's not as
Wow.
important as it used to be. And what's interesting about that is it killed the culture. New technology kills culture, and that culture then becomes art, and that art eventually now has become content. Content. People are going there, taking pictures of these things, posting it on the internet. I think this is really interesting compared to other cities that, when they had technology disrupt them, continued to invest in new infrastructure versus trying to hang on to old, and how that city expanded. And I was also in London for the conference, and I was like, okay, London had a lot of disruption. London's a crazy city. Like,
Yeah.
the
It's
way that it's
wild.
built it feels chaotic because
Because it
everything
is
is
chaotic.
everywhere, and it's like there could be a 6-way stop, and one of those roads end up leading to a dead end, down at the end of the block, and it's like it's all over the map. And a lot of this,
We're spoiled with our grid systems.
we're
Yeah.
spoiled with our grid systems, although not every American city has that grid system. I will say that.
I
New
want to
York's
tag
the
on to
best.
this thing that
Yeah.
you're talking about
Yeah.
with the wool trade,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it reminded me of something that I had heard some time ago about Napoleon the third. You heard the story about the aluminum silverware. You heard
Yeah,
about
no,
this?
no,
This
hit
whole
me. Hit me with
Okay.
the stuff.
So it's like story that about how aluminum was a precious metal in the late 1800s, because aluminum doesn't like just appear in like large deposits in like ore. So like this is like when you go mining, which by the way, the Minecraft movie is blowing up. Which
Blowing up as in hot garbage.
I'll call it the Minecraft movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my kid said.
So mine too. Mine too. That's a whole other thing. That's also on the After Dark.
Oh my gosh.
Napoleon used to reserve this like special set of like aluminum cutlery for guests. It was like a whole thing. And aluminum is just like really rare to find in like large ore deposits. It's just like you don't find it in the earth. But then we develop this in the like early 20th century, like late 18th century, many years later, we developed this process to extract aluminum from soil. And it turns out it's everywhere. Like it's the most abundant material. It's not rare at all. It's all around us. And then he basically has it all melted down. Like it's no longer rare. We actually see that happen over and over again in so many facets of technology. Like technological advancement makes a lot of things that we think like that we consider exceedingly rare to be like things that aren't so rare anymore. Graphic design as a trade used to be exceedingly rare, and now
Diamonds.
It's like we do lab grow diamonds now. I had this conversation too with somebody who was they're getting engaged soon, and they're like having a debate about whether they should have lab grown diamonds versus I called it a blood diamond. They didn't like that. They didn't like
a
the
mined diamond.
A mined diamond. Oh my word!
Diamond swords, baby.
It's wild. But you enjoyed your time in London.
Oh, of course. The UK is lovely. It was a great respite from our crazy world. If you want to hear more about our crazy world, go listen to the After Dark, which means you have to become a Future Commerce Plus subscriber, and you should.
Yeah, and if you are a Future Commerce Plus subscriber, here's a little hint for you. You'll get our brand new book, Lore. That's our new coffee table book. You get a subscription with all subscription, our membership. You get a discount to our merch shop. That's all of our print. You get a discount when you join Future Commerce Plus. So not only will you get invites to all of Brian's bougie events and our upcoming Vision Summit on June 10th at the MoMA, you'll get you first in the door. You'll get the rope drop. You're going to get a discount to the VIP ticket. You're also going to save a little bit of money on our print product, and that's Lore, our brand new print journal from Future Commerce. It's 280 beautiful pages, and that's the only way that you'll ever save money on such a thing. Join Future Commerce Plus today, and you'll be able to hear our behind-the-scenes screwdriver talk, our little screws that we're screwing in our new economy, Mr. Howard Lutnick. I'm so glad that we chose this administration to focus on the Commerce Secretary, Brian.
I
Very
love
excited.
it. Yeah, it's great because it's been a big.
It's a lot of content. Let's just say Gina Raimondo had no content to cover. So,
well, if you're worried about things, I think that you should stick around for this next interview, which is a lovely interview with a guy named Lewis Pugh, an incredible athlete and swimmer and champion for the environment. He has just a calming presence to him, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So, Lewis Pugh up next, and then followed by that, I have Ria from DAZN and Paul from Optimove, and so we'll start with Lewis's interview and then jump over to Ria and Paul, and I cannot wait to get into it.
So I think that when I started my swims, I used some negative stuff to begin with to motivate me. So this person or that person said I can't do it, so I'm going to go do it. But that's not sustainable over a 40-year career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of businesses, founders, face similar things.
Do they?
Right? Like when someone goes to start a business and they are often motivated by the no's more than the yeses. Mm-hmm. But I think that's, like you said, like that can't be the end. You have to have...
Well, you need to be able to put it down.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're always going to have this chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I was reading about you is that you look at counterfactuals. They didn't put it this way, but
Okay.
I'm going to put it in those terms.
Yeah.
Counterfactuals are sort of like the what ifs, and we talk a lot about those at Future Commerce. And so different alternate scenarios and the ways that things could go worse or could go better. And there's upward counterfactual thinking and downward counterfactual thinking.
Okay.
And so if you think about what could have gone better, that's actually kind of a negative, right?
Yes.
When you think about what could have gone worse, that's like a what if. Like that puts you in a whole different mindset. Like what are the things that went right that maybe shouldn't have gone right? What could have gone worse is a different way of approaching things.
So I think in the world of sport, it's when we fail that there's suddenly a really big wake-up call. And we ask ourselves, what went wrong and why did it go wrong? I do try and ask my team after every swim and subsequent campaign, what went right and why did it go right?
Yeah.
And obviously then you need to be asking yourselves, you know, what improvements can we still make?
Yeah.
I remember listening to one cricketer who was a top bowler, a man called Vince van der Bijl, and he was talking about how many wickets he'd taken. And he said that in his career, he'd only bowled 3 perfect balls. And I said, well, Vince, how is this possible? He said, well, it was only 3 times where before the ball had actually left his hand, he knew he had the batsman out.
Yeah.
And I said, but you took, I think it was about 800 first-class wickets. And he said, but only 3 were perfect. And then I look back in my career, and I think in a career of nearly 40 years, there's probably 1 or 2 which were perfect.
Wow. When you think about the swims you've done, and what could have, in your analysis of each swim, and what are some consistent themes that you've identified in terms of why something would go well or not go well?
You've got to be prepared. I mean, the sea will very, very quickly find out if you haven't done enough training. Yeah. So over my career, I've only failed on 3 swims. And I hope to swim till the last day of my life. But when I look back at those 3 swims, the preparation was not right. Yeah.
That's a
So
huge lesson.
yeah, so really, and the interesting thing is that people say, oh, practice until it's perfect. In swimming, it's never perfect. There's always something you can do. There's always work which you can do on your technique. Always. And I think you need to practice things until you can't get them wrong, not until you get them right. There's a difference on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think about the marketers that are here at this conference, Optimove Connect, and the campaigns that they have to run. And oftentimes they don't have much space to necessarily practice, but they can prepare, which is interesting. A lot of their training comes on the job as they go.
Yes.
As they're running campaigns, they're learning from them.
Yeah.
And the next one is actually the training for the following one.
Yes.
And there's no space in between, to think through ththings or like hardly even to improve things. I was just talking to Ria from DAZN, and she was saying I have a team of 9, and everyone is maxed all the time, and they're just pushing all the way through. What kind of advice do you have for people that are in teams where they're pushing themselves to the limit? Because as we get more positionless, as he said in his opening keynote, everyone's going to be only bound by their own ability to execute.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I try to do one very big swim a year. One very, very big swim a year. I find that if I do more, they just say, isn't there time between the swims to just focus, to really get the basics right? The interesting thing about swimming is that swimming is the only sport which operates on 3 axes. So the head moves left to right, the arms move around and around, and the legs move up and down. And if any one of those is out of sync, then you're going to be fighting the sea. And so one has to spend an inordinate amount of time just focusing on your stroke and getting it right. And so between the swims, that's when that has to happen. And if I was just doing a swim, every sort of month, a really big swim every month, there wouldn't be that time. And then when I needed that really good stroke, it wouldn't be there for when I really needed it.
I love that. I think a great lesson might be less is more, actually.
Yes. Well, so before I do any expedition, we put it through a number of different filters about whether I'm going to do a campaign or a swim, And one of them is it great or is it epic? Because I just don't want to be doing great swims. I want to be doing swims which are epic, which shift the dial in terms of the way we think about the environment and help protect the environment. And so by the end of my career, I want to have done maybe 10 epic swims.
I feel like you're close.
Yeah, we're fairly close, but I've got this long list of swims which I still want to do.
You may do more than 10 then.
Yes, but really epic ones. Ones which people remember. And normally it's the simplest ones. For example, the swim which I did in 2007, which was across the North Pole.
Yeah.
And I remember arriving at the North Pole, and it was, nobody thought you could swim across the North Pole. And it was just a very, very simple message. I'm here to do a swim across a place which has been frozen over for millennia. You can even do a swim here now. And I remember stripping down to my Speedo costume and looking in at the water, and then thinking to myself, okay, now's the time. Now I'm going to commit. And when it's going to be epic.
I think that's such a great way to put it. You know when it's going to be epic is a question that every marketer should be asking themselves as they go after their campaigns.
Because we do, everyone talks about good to great.
Yes.
No. You want to be talking about what is going to be really epic.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Look back and say that was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah. It was interesting, I was in Greenland recently, and I did a series of photographs with National Geographic, and it was so challenging. So I was doing these photographs next to an iceberg which was 1 kilometer tall. I mean, it's hard to imagine something which is 1 kilometer tall.
Yeah.
So there's 100 meters above the water. Below the water is 900 meters of ice. And as soon as you get in and everything is quiet, and then you can hear all the ice sort of bashing up against each other. And if you listen very, very carefully, you can hear the bubbles. And the bubbles is ice, is air which was trapped inside the iceberg thousands and thousands of years ago. And so to swim there is to swim through history, literally. And I had the best driver, an Inuit lady who is just so patient. Because when you're in that type of environment and you're putting a boat very, very close to an iceberg which is 1 kilometer tall, and that can collapse at any moment and bring the whole lot down on top of us. And then I had the best photographer, a Swedish guy called Jonas Karlsson. And it was at that moment that I realized, and then he took the photograph, and I climbed back into the boat, and then he just turned the camera around to show me the picture. And I realized that at that one moment, if I had died at that moment, I would have been okay, because I'd have said, this photograph represents what I'm trying to say.
I hope that all of us have a moment like that in our lives. Where we can look back and say, that's the moment that represented what I hope to achieve, and hope that I represented myself. And it can be distilled down to that kind of a moment. It's good to have that in your life also, because it's part of your story and your myth, right? As a person. And as you think about people's lives and their stories, and the story that they're creating for themselves, what role do you feel like myth plays in that? Because myth isn't always the truth, but maybe it speaks to a higher truth of their lives. I just think about what you said earlier when you were swimming across the North Pole. You didn't believe, people didn't believe that this could happen, and I still don't know if I believe that it's possible. Obviously, you've done it, and that puts you into a category of myth, and that's why I asked this question.
I don't know how to answer that question, except to say that it was quite extraordinary. So the only way to get to the North Pole is on a ship in the summer. And on that ship, there must have been 300 people. And I did the swim, and 300 people watched it. Anyway, I came back, and, I was on everything from Jay Leno to you name it. Right? And on BBC to CNN. It was a truly global story that somebody has swum across the North Pole. And yet there are still people who don't believe it happened. And one of those people was actually a really famous polar explorer who said, no, it's not possible.
Right.
It's not possible. One of my friends was speaking to me and said, I watched it. No, I don't believe it's possible. But there's video footage of the whole thing. So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. Each one of those people, those 300 people that watched live, they all took away something different.
Yes.
And I think that story, that collective story, along with the video, which is an asynchronous way to engage with what you did, like all of this starts to build something closer to the reality of what you did. And I bring this up because, we think about, what's going into the future. We're talking a lot about how marketing is going to change at the conference here. And what's going to endure? What can you do to set yourself up to endure for the next 100 years, right? And I think about your story, and it's something that's almost unbelievable, that only a limited number of people have viewed, that there's video on, and that is going to endure for many, many, many years until someone swims the circumference of the world or whatever. You know, it's like, it becomes a new myth, right? But that's, even what you're doing now is part of that greater story.
I think what's interesting is that something can happen a long time ago and it still has a power to inspire today.
Yes.
So it's no coincidence, you know, I grew up in England as a young boy in Plymouth, and this is a city where almost every one of Britain's great explorers came from Plymouth. I mean, my mother recounted a story of when I was a little boy, and I was literally 5 years old and walking along the front there, we call it the Hoe, and I would see ships leaving, and I would say to her, I want to be on one of those ships one day. Yeah. And then I moved out to South Africa, and it was at a time when it was during apartheid, and a number of my lecturers at university had been imprisoned, fighting for justice, fighting for equality. And those two things had such a big impact on my life, because I started swimming and I started seeing the oceans change. But it took me time to understand what it was inside me that felt so strongly that I should be prepared to go all the way to the North Pole and do a swim there. And perhaps I can just bottle it down to one word, and that is justice. For me, this was an issue of justice. Justice between ourselves and the animal kingdom. We are literally pushing thousands and thousands of animals into extinction now. We're not the only animal on this planet. And the second thing is justice between ourselves and future generations. We need to learn how to become good ancestors. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because justice is a universal concept. I can be in Saudi Arabia today, I can be in North America, I can be in Argentina, South Africa, all these countries. You speak to somebody about justice and they know what it means. And so I think when we see somebody doing something deep down which I believe is right and just, it can resonate with us through history. Through history, there are people who have died, who I never met, and yet their lives and the way they conducted them inspire me still to this day.
Yeah, I love that. Coming around a concept that is, it's universal. It's something that everyone understands. Doing what's right.
Yes.
And so it sounds like that's what.
And doing what's right is often tough.
It is.
It's often tough. They always say there's never a wrong moment to do the right thing.
Right.
But it can be really tough.
The costs can be high.
Very high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I come from a country where a lot of people lost their lives. Just simply fighting for justice and equality.
Yeah.
Something which we take for granted. Equality.
Absolutely. It sounds like that is the motivator for you as you go do these amazing things.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally inspired by the oceans.
Yeah.
When I try to swim every day. When I'm in the oceans, I feel very, very, it feels like the right place to be. And I've seen a full range of oceans. I've seen oceans which are bountiful and amazing with so much life, and I've seen other parts of the oceans which have been really badly impacted by overfishing and climate change. And when you see that broad range, you want to work hard to try and save our oceans now.
It's interesting. There's a component of observation to this. I think being observant about where you're at, and being observant of different components of our world is essential for having a cause.
Yes.
And exposure as well. But I think you can also find that even in limited places, right? Like being exposed to one aspect of one small place versus the other, you can still even find things to be passionate about, even within whatever little market or place that you're in.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like whatever you're doing, being observant about where there's a need is part of the process of finding something that can motivate you towards that next step.
You need to be observant, need to be passionate. And you mentioned now that it can cost a lot. This time now one has to learn, are you going to be a willow or are you going to be an oak? And sometimes, the willow is the strongest of trees in storms.
Oh yeah.
So when are you going to be the oak and when are you going to be the willow?
That's a tough one, yeah, especially when you see a whole tide going the other direction.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Rene Girard at all, but his idea of mimetic cycles, mimesis, and people tend to copy each other. And
Yes.
no desire is actually inherent. You're observing other people's desire and you're following them.
That's interesting.
And so the idea is that these mimetic cycles happen and people sort of all group into one line of thought. Getting out of that requires a very special person who then is often scapegoated.
Yes.
Because they're going against the grain
tide.
of thought and the desire that people have. And so being anti-mimetic and standing up for something that you know is right can be a very dangerous position.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most difficult things in the entire world.
Yeah, but I was lucky though. And I was lucky because I grew up in a country which celebrated those type of people. Now in other countries, that type of thing is not celebrated.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that's a huge point, actually, because there's privilege in it. It's not a bad thing, but there's if I was born in an environment that didn't celebrate that, who would I be as a person?
Yes.
I think running that kind of a counterfactual is
I like
actually
that.
really healthy.
Would I be who I am now had I just grown up in South Africa?
Yeah. That's a tough question.
I wouldn't, would I?
Yeah, it makes you have empathy for everyone.
I think one of the saddest things was that, so I went to the University of Cape Town between 1990 and 1995. And just 2 weeks after starting at the University of Cape Town, the state president of South Africa stood up in Parliament and said he was releasing Nelson Mandela from prison. And then in 1994, Nelson Mandela came in. And I remember looking around the class on the final day and thinking to myself, well, who out of this class are going to be the great champions of human rights? And the sad reality is that most of them sort of went into commercial law. A lot of them went into business. Some of them were so tired of law that they left. But the tragedy is there were very few of us who are left now fighting for human rights.
Allow me to take an alt take real quick, and I'm not contradicting what you're saying at all when I say this, but I do believe there's opportunity for even people that go into law and into business to make it a difference.
Yes.
And I think, so something at Future Commerce that we say is that commerce is culture. And that actually if you can change the culture of commerce, you can change the world.
Yes.
And so if commerce in many ways is at the heart of a lot of what we do, it's transaction. Transaction is identity exchange. What you buy buys you back.
Yes.
And so I think there's there's people out there who are specifically built to be champions in one way, but I think everyone can be a champion wherever they are, whether they're in a legal career, even in a corporate legal career, or in a major multinational corporation. There's a way to be anti-mimetic no matter where you are.
Yeah, I like that.
But to your point, like, I think actually sometimes in those positions it's even harder to go against the current, and so they get swept up into it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a challenge. So it's good to have people who sit outside of it that can inspire and help bring us all towards that next step, and remind us what we should be fighting for. So I think that having both is incredibly helpful. And now I'm just preaching a little bit, but
Yeah, good.
yeah. I just think about who's here at this conference and what they're all up against, whether it be, gaming or selling things, and like being able to stand up for something and to make a difference in this world, even in, our very specific, sometimes often siloed, hopefully expanding to positionless roles that we're in. What would you, before we kind of close out here today, do you have any words of advice for how people can make that change and step out and do something that makes a difference in the world in their role?
I was very lucky to work with Desmond Tutu. And he was a very, very special person. He was a special person for many reasons. For those of you listeners who perhaps don't know who Desmond Tutu was, but he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He was an archbishop in South Africa who stood up against apartheid. And it was very, very interesting observing him from up close, because for somebody who won a Nobel Peace Prize, he could get angry. Yeah. And we loved it. And we loved it because it came right from the heart, that if he saw an injustice, it burnt down, deep down inside him. And he had let it bubble over. But then once it had bubbled over, he loved to celebrate. Throughout the hard times, and year after year after year, he found those moments to celebrate and have a cup of tea and cake. Yeah. But I think the most important thing that I learned from him was that in order to be an environmental campaigner, I had to learn to listen to the dialogue of the other side. And really listen to it. And to find where there is common ground. Because other than a few people, I think most people believe that we should have a planet which is where you have, clean air and fresh water and a habitable planet. And they don't want to damage the planet. But some of them just are not always aware of what they're doing. And so just learning to listen to them and to maybe not change their mind, but give them a different perspective. That's what I learned through my work. And so to your audience, really learning to listen is an art in itself. We do a lot of talking.
Love that. That is a great place to leave it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis.
Okay.
Good conversation.
Thanks so much.
What a cool chat I had with Lewis. I'm sure you all heard this. Lewis has a very calming and just like wise feeling demeanor. And when you're in his presence, you feel like bask in that. This next chat, totally different kind of chat, which is so cool because Optimove Connect had this incredible theme about marketers becoming positionless. And this has been a big push of theirs and a big point of theirs. Technology is now at a point where marketers can get out of the old assembly line way of doing things that caused delays, caused marketers not be able to be as responsive, and not be able to do their jobs as well as they could and rely on other people all the time. And they'd have to rely on other people all the time. And so now with AI and with good software, all of a sudden marketers are going to be able to get rid of this idea of the assembly line and sort of take this positionless idea. Peony, the CEO of Optimove, had these incredible analogies he gave when he did his keynote about how basketball teams that moved to positionless just dominated, and how even in football and just it opened up the pitch and gave the teams that sort of adopted some of these strategies an edge. And now marketers, as they think about how they're using data, how they generate copy or visuals, and how they optimize campaigns, are going to be able to just do it all themselves in contained units. And how that's going to change the dynamics within orgs is amazing. It's not that you won't have jobs. It's not that you won't have jobs with specific descriptions. It's that you'll be able to not rely on other people for a lot of the things that you've had to rely on them in the past. And so I think this is so exciting. And as I get into this conversation with Ria Chin-You from DAZN and Paul O'Shea from Optimove, this next conversation is going to shed a little bit of light about what that potential future could look like. And so without further ado, let's jump right in.
Hello and welcome to Future Commerce. I'm Brian. I'm here live at Optimove Connect, and I have two lovely guests sitting down with me to chat about positionless marketing and the changing role of the marketer due to Gen AI. And today I have with me Paul O'Shea, who's the head of customer success at Optimove, and Ria Chin-You, who's the VP of CRM at DAZN. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to be chatting with you both because, Ria, your role is quite intense at DAZN. And so why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of an intro into what you do in your worldwide role.
Sure. So I am a VP of CRM at DAZN. I look after global markets, which is 200 plus markets. Our core markets being US, UK, and then emerging markets, MENA, Latin America, and Australia and New Zealand. I have a team of around about 9, and I essentially look after all of the communications within our CRM, but also lifestyle marketing as well, lifecycle marketing. So anything from acquisition, in life, engagement, retention, and win back. And also I'm doing a lot of product stuff, which also touches that as well. So, cancellation flows, pop-ups, that sort of thing that touches the life cycle.
That's so much to do, especially across the world, DAZN is in so many places. Super excited to chat about how you're accomplishing that. Paul, why don't you give an intro as well?
Oh, thanks, Brian. So my name is Paul O'Shea. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success EMEA for Optimove. So my team's role really is to help our clients unlock the value from the Optimove platform and ecosystem. And obviously, we're here at Optimove Connect. We've just seen Shai share the roadmap and the vision of how we're bringing AI into our product. So our job in the customer success organization is to make sure clients like DAZN and supporting Ria to unlock value, monetization, drive that lifetime value of their customers so that they achieve success with our platform and we enjoy great success collaborating with great, amazing clients.
Amazing, yeah. And it sounds like you've been able to partner with them for 18 months now and to help enable some of those incredibly difficult things that you get to do, Ria. So tell me a little bit more about your use of Optimove to go do all of the retention and marketing that you do. What are some of the initial ways you employed the platform?
Sure. So I guess I'm just going to explain a little bit more about DAZN.
Yeah.
For those who don't know.
That's
so
a good idea.
DAZN is a sports streaming platform, and we have multiple rights in multiple markets, and those markets speak different languages. And so there's lots of kind of variations in terms of our audiences. And I guess what I do is we talk to different subscribers. It's a subscription service, and we talk to different subscribers about the rights in their market. And we try to either acquire subscriptions, increase our lifetime value, and or retain and win back. And so how we're using Optimove is really interesting because we use it for segmentation in the most basic form. How do we talk to our different markets, our different subscribers? How do we talk to them in their different stages of their life cycle? And we also then build out our comms within the platform, and then we get our analytics in the most simplistic way. But I guess when my team is split out into 3 verticals, and each vertical looks after different rights and different markets, and that's when it becomes more complex. So we have the international rights for NFL, which is all of the global markets outside of the US. And then we are kind of most commonly known for boxing in most of our markets as well. And then we have smaller rights in various markets, so kind of rallies of the world and golf. And so we can have markets with multiple subscriptions. We can have markets with just one subscription. We can have markets with multiple languages. And so kind of Optimove then helps us to understand who we're talking to, what we need to serve them, and when. And then I guess kind of the conversation about Gen AI is, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think I currently don't feel like I've got the time to enable it fully. But I know it's a looming conversation that I can't avoid. And I also know that we're using it probably in bite-sized pieces, but how do we get to a place where we're using it kind of to enable us to either drive reach or increase personalization, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you hit some really key points that others are facing right now, which is that teams are strapped to do what they need to do. Everyone is full steam ahead all the time. And so introducing AI into workflows sounds like it can be, it's a big change management issue. The thing that I'm seeing though, and I've heard is like a lot of people are using AI tools like off-platform or in cowboy ways. They're using them and just like pasting them in, and like everyone has their own like workflow that they just like personally use. There's not been a lot of sharing of like standard ways of doing things, and it's whether it be content creation or other ways of empowering your team. AI it's being used. It's just it's really hard to capture all the different ways in which people are using it. Have you sort of seen that? How about you personally? Have you been able to?
So personally, I find AI quite nebulous. I find it slightly fantastical, and I try not to be negative about it, but I do find when we're in talks and everyone talks about AI, and all the articles you read about things that it's going to do in the future, and whilst it does seem like it would help with efficiency, with output, I'm in a position where my day-to-day doesn't give me the time to, I guess, onboard it. And so I've seen, members in my team, even I might use a ChatGPT here and there. We might include it in our work. We may share something that we've learned or got from the output. However, it's not kind of integrated as it should be. And we kind of use it in tools already in Optimove, probably without knowing. But it's definitely something that I realise is coming. I realise it is going to help us beyond the resource that I can get within my team. But I guess I'm in a position where, my days are full. And like many of us, my days full. And, it feels like I would need to step back to be able to fully understand the capability, fully understand how it can apply to my use cases, to then put a strategy together to ensure that it works for me. And that time I don't have. Yeah, Paul, I'm just coming off of these past 2 talks and keynotes that we've seen here. I'm sure that you've got a point of view on how to start adopting some of these new tools that you're introducing in the platform.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, firstly, I completely empathize with Ria. I mean, AI, it's so exciting, but it also probably can be very daunting. And I think that's part of the challenge for most individuals to go through. But I mean, for Optimove, AI or machine learning has always been at the center of what we do, from day dot, we were always big on predictive analytics. So using this to help our clients drive future value or be smarter, more intelligent of how they segment and actually create campaigns. So for us, it's not necessarily new, but for us, we're also on that journey of how do we leverage the new capabilities that are being released around Gen AI and incorporating that as a new capability in our platform under our OptiGenie umbrella. So giving clients like DAZN, which, you know, as you said, you painted a picture of the complexity. I mean, it's incredible, but you know, Optimove, we love that because it challenges our tech and it challenges our ability to make something as challenging for a user like Ria become manageable in a platform that brings capabilities around orchestration, leveraging AI to be smart and give her, like, I guess, guides to make better decisions without necessarily having to roll her sleeves up too much. So we're trying to provide more and more of that capability at the center of our technology to allow our clients to, I guess, grow faster. But we appreciate it. It does come with some challenges, and putting these frameworks in place like we were discussing probably is quite important so that you get that consistency in output and that you can be assured that what you are putting out there to your customers is the right content, because you cannot afford to send the wrong message, the wrong action to your customer. And so that's where I think we need to be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, simple nudges, right?
Yeah.
Prompts, easy ways to start incorporating it into your workflow without it being this huge, like, I gotta wrap my mind around this whole thing. It's maybe perhaps like it can be integrated in a little bit more simply and just used in native as a native part of your job.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that point because I think it does get back to the thing that is one of your biggest challenges right now, which is your team is 9 people. You're serving how many markets again?
Yes, over 200.
Yeah.
Yes.
So over 200 markets with 9 people. That sounds like a job that used to require, I mean, significantly larger teams than the one that you're running right now.
Yeah.
And so having tools like this will make it easier for someone with 10 people in total in the department to be able to address 200 plus markets.
Yes, and I see that and I appreciate that, and that is what I'm thankful for with kind of the I guess the new abilities that it's going to allow my team to do. I think we're in a position now where we are personalizing to a degree. You have to prioritize in the personalization where we are right now. We are looking at languages, we are looking at certain rights, we are looking at key messages, we are looking at tone of voice, we are looking at assets and asset creation for those different cohorts. But as I say, we are personalizing for a priority subset of all of our cohort. And actually what we need to do is get to a position where we can have the same level of input, but an increased output. And that's beyond any number of resource capability, that's realistic within organizations that are looking at numbers in terms of, and members of staff. And so that's where this will help us to then begin to scale and hopefully start to see value not just in the markets that we're prioritizing, but markets that may be smaller but have a lot of headroom that we can't necessarily see right now because we aren't kind of giving them the expected level of comms, I guess, that we are to our kind of key markets.
That's incredible. Yeah. Paul, I feel like you were about to jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, because I guess what I like about this is that we are trying to help unlock, I guess, the capability within teams like Ria's. We have nine people on your team, 200 markets. It just seems like it's unachievable task of making everything happen that you want to happen. And I guess just tying it back to the keynote from our CEO Penny about trying to use AI to unlock the positionless marketer.
Yeah.
But ideally creating super workers. So for me, the vision would be that we can help you build 9 super workers on your team that can drive the increased volume that you need in an efficient way, that you're not too stressed, your team are not too stressed, but the capabilities just enable it. But my big mission, I guess, would be to provide the how-to. And that's my team's real goal would be, here's how we can give you the how-to guides on specific use case by use case,
Yeah.
start to take them off one by one to give you that feeling that actually it's being leveraged. You haven't had to roll your sleeves up too much, but you're allowing partners like us, hopefully, to help you on the journey and help you achieve even better performance than what you're already having.
Yes.
I like that. Two things to take away from that for me. So I think, do you ever heard this idea of like empty software? It's software that's just like, you're handed a tool and it's like, oh, you can do anything with that tool.
Yeah.
I think, Paul, what you're saying is the way that software companies right now can best help bring AI to teams like Ria's is to give them the capability to do that without, again, not too much change management, because it's just everyone's strapped.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge. And the second thing I heard was being able to use tools to address new markets using the same team. So it's not just about like, doing your existing job better. It's actually about the capability to expand faster
Correct.
and better.
Yeah.
And I think that's super exciting too. And I think being able to take AI and have it maybe do new iterations of things you're already doing, be able to translate things to different cultures. But I do worry, and I think you alluded to this, Ria, like you want to make sure that those messages are things that would actually hit in those markets,
Yes.
because it's so easy and so there's so little things can make things look really wonky from culture to culture,
Yes.
market to market.
Yes, and I think that's where we are probably feeling safer with, I guess, people, right?
Yeah.
People output.
Yeah.
So we can cross-reference with our teams internationally. We can ensure that we are checking if there is a key day that we should be recognizing, or if the tone of voice isn't quite right, or if there's something that maybe doesn't land in terms of a straight translation. And those sorts of things I think is really important to us, because when we are talking about a subscriber and we are talking about a particular sport, how do they digest that sport? And we want to ensure that we are speaking their language.
Yeah, of course.
Not only in the language, not only in their kind of language, but also in a way that means that they will, I guess,
Feel authentic.
authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that is it. And I think we are sharing sports that maybe. An American sport is NFL, right?
Yeah.
And one of our biggest roles is
Yeah.
trying to take NFL internationally. And how can we get them to adopt it as a sport that they want to watch, a sport they understand, versus just, taking exactly what
lift and shift.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
what's said in America and trying to just.
It's not gonna
convert
work.
It doesn't
It's
work.
not gonna work, yeah.
And so that's where I guess.
That's a great lens. I must say that
Yeah, and that's
cultural
where I'm
piece is a great lens.
cautious.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
100%.
cautious.
And I think being culturally smart
Yeah.
brand is the true work of every brand right now, and we've talked about this at length on Feature Commerce. Understanding how to be a cultural brand is actually how you become a generational brand, because that's how you start to bring on new generations, because
Yeah.
generations are each their own culture. So even within one market, you have to go
Yeah.
generation by generation or
Yeah.
psychographic by psychographic, and
Yep.
the only way to be authentic to them, and of course it gets more and more granular, which it sounds almost impossible from like a human only perspective to
Yes.
do this.
Yes.
It has to be technology enabled.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we're in a good position, but like I say, we have to prioritize accordingly. And I think one of the best examples I can think of is when we're working in boxing. You have multiple fights in a boxing event, and each of those fighters can be from a different country or speak a different language. And so our personalization may be that we want to talk to a fighter's home country in their language, and the key message will be about that fighter, even though they may not be on the main card, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so that we can control, because we know exactly what we're trying to do, and we know exactly who we're talking to and about what fighter. And so this is then the challenge that I would then pose to Paul. How can we then create levels of personalization
Yep.
within that, and that definitely doesn't sound like it's out of the box.
Maybe not out of the box, but I think that what's really exciting about AI, and we were talking about this prior to getting on camera,
Yeah.
right, is the way that you work with AI is you almost have to treat it like it's a team member or a resource, right? And it may not be like the smartest resource in terms of like being fully understanding the goal, right? But it does have all of this data
Yeah.
that's there
Yeah.
and latent. And if you find how to like get in and get after that, the things that are there, it can actually help inform a lot of those campaigns. So
Yeah.
like you brought up the fighter. AI probably knows more about that fighter than your team members did.
I agree.
Right? And so you're going to be able to take it and be like, here's the message we want to bring. What do you know about this guy? And how can we bring those messages back in and create all of these additional messages
Yeah.
that hit on like, maybe some special story about him or like what his hometown is and then you can actually like iterate a lot faster.
Drive relevance.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's about how you end up treating the
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
And that's where the learning component is
Yeah.
like, how do we treat this tool and like use it to speed up our processes?
Yes, and be consistent with it.
Yeah.
I think that's key,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Sometimes we
absolutely.
use it in a panic. Oh gosh, I need to get some information. Let's just
Yeah.
use it. But how do we integrate it into our daily processes? And one of the things in the talk is we're kind of stuck in this kind of conveyor
Assembly
belt.
line,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're we are waiting for creative, and while we're waiting for creative, we're going to build the narrative, and then while we build the narrative, hopefully the creative will come, so then we can all put the
Yep.
pieces together. But
Yeah.
actually, if there is a tool, like you say, which is part of the team,
Right.
it could do a lot of that work in parallel while we can do other things, and
Correct.
that then gives us the capacity to then create more space within our team to deliver other things or increase
Yeah.
our output.
And that's what Optimum's aiming to do, right?
Yes.
Is
Yeah, of
provide that
course.
team member.
Of course, but first, I want to say, I love the fact we get challenged by clients. It's the best part for me personally and for my team is when we have a client that has an ambition or a vision and they're saying, help us.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I think what we're trying to do with our technology is to deliver that. But again, it's not something that happens overnight. Like, it's this journey. And I think what I really love is working with clients that have not like we want to get everything right today. It's understanding that we have a journey to go on together, and we'll try to fix a few parts of that assembly line, or use some new capabilities to create more positionless workers that can kind of get more done. So I think the journey will begin, and we really love being part of it. But I also wanted to add your reference around, that extra team player, because I think one of the biggest benefits I just feel with clients that have issues with like translation and multi-market is before it would be one translator translating every piece of copy.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so much time consuming, whereas if you can at least get the copy pre-translated, then there's less time required to validate and proof.
Yes.
So I think it's like taking those learnings of what can we trust that extra team member to do to free up time, but then spend a less amount of time actually doing the QA and making sure that it is right within brand, on brand, meeting any regulatory, and that's I think where it can really assist and help clients really unlock more value and do more with less time.
Agree. And just one point on that. I think it also will assist us to be more agile.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we have sports is a moving beast. If someone has a injury, for instance, we need to ensure that our comms is accurate, and we want to be the reliable voice in that space. So when we're waiting for translations that we briefed last week because we thought we knew exactly what was happening, and then they take a couple of days, and then we have to QA, and the landscape changes.
Yeah.
We are no longer agile.
Yeah.
And so
That's such a challenge.
and so we can be prepared as we want.
Yeah.
We can put processes and SLAs in place, and I'm very operationally focused, so I ensure that my team allows time and space for each kind of piece of the assembly line, interestingly, but things don't go to plan, as we all know, and sports for me has been probably the most challenging of industries I've worked in, where you can't rely on anything, because teams will play and then someone who you think is going to win doesn't win. or someone gets injured straight away, or we get to the day and the time of the event changes, or it gets called off because of adverse weather, and so we lose that agility when we're waiting for all these things in the assembly line.
And I think that's where positionless for a lot of companies can fulfill a certain need. So obviously you're going to need those big sessions where key stakeholders spend much time on the assembly line because it's a major event. But when you need agility, positionless is there to help. So hopefully that's what we're, I guess, offering to our clients, to give you that capability and be more agile and respond to the moments that matter and be resonant in the moment that matters.
Actually, I buy that in terms of AI.
Totally.
That's the bit that I think, actually, as someone who works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, potentially. That's what it says. But, our events are mainly on the weekend, and, Fridays we never leave on time, and Saturdays we're working, and then Sundays we're doing the wrap up. I think that, that time saving is of real value to me and to my team. I think that's where I can see the real value.
Sounds harder to keep up with than American politics. I think it sounds like sports. It's interesting, especially going into new markets that are maybe not used to the speed at which this information impacts the game. Or, I think it sounds like you have an educational component to what you do. As you're trying to get people to engage and take part in watching games or matches or whatever it is. Those new markets, they're maybe around the world from where the event's taking place.
Yeah.
And so getting that information to them in a way that makes sense to them, it almost sounds impossible.
Yes, I mean, it is difficult, and I think especially when we have new data, new leads, trying to understand where they sit in that education of the sport is probably the most challenging. But then when we start to understand them as a user, we can start to see their streaming duration potentially, or what games they're streaming. So you may have teams or fighters that will be resonate with more casual audiences. Then you can start to understand how much education you do need to give them. And again, it's the test and learn space, and AI will definitely help us with that.
Absolutely.
But I think, when you are taking an American sport to international audiences, especially, that is where we need to educate our audiences. However, there are pockets of kind of super fans around the world that know exactly the sport. They've been following it for years, and actually what you don't want to do is spoon feed them things that they already know.
Totally.
And then they think that our comms is it has no value. And so that's the difficulty, and we don't want to do things like drive unsubscribes or become an organization that's teaching fans what they already know, and therefore they unsubscribe, or we start driving metrics like
this
that.
is another small. Go ahead.
I just want to add, because I think one of the things about DAZN that I've been impressed with is the amount of data that you do share with us. Because there's obviously I'm a subscriber, I've paid for an annual subscription, you know how much I'm paying, you know how long my subscription is for, you know what I've bought, but there's all this online activity that really paints a more comprehensive picture of that person that we are also getting from DAZN, which is phenomenal, because it does allow us to see what have they looked at the DAZN website, what kind of sports have they interacted with, and this is data, and I think what we Optimove love is data, and the more that we can get this fed in, it helps us build profiles or personas, and any of that data can then be leveraged in personalization based on segmentation. So again, there's many layers that we are supporting currently, but obviously the future is really exciting, because there's a lot more I think we can do to allow you not have those moments where you're speaking to a fan at fan level and you're speaking to a casual at casual level, and they get the right value from you to say DAZN is my brand of choice. And that's what we hopefully can provide for you, and I think hopefully we are providing right now.
Yes, and I think there is definitely room to understand those personas and have them in more granularity. I think we definitely do have them right now. I need to understand, I guess this is an education for me then, to understand how AI could help us in trying to grow out those personas and grow, I guess, different different requirements
Yep.
for different cohorts,
Yep.
and therefore then
Exactly right.
retargeting them with what they need.
That's it. I mean, our philosophy is like add more data to add more kind of intelligence
Yeah.
so that you can be more relevant at the moment that matters.
Yeah,
But it's not easy, but we're already well underway with DAZN in terms of the data points we are getting. It's what do we need next, to your
Yes.
point. Like, what is the next step in the journey of the next jigsaw piece that we need to fill in to help make that progress, and then see how AI complements and supplements that to unlock at scale. So that's the challenge I think that we've been
Yes.
offered, which is great, but the hard work now begins.
Yeah. What are the indicators?
Yeah.
What are they showing?
Correct.
And what are the signals that we need to look for to then be able to dictate?
The content decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think this is exactly right. Yeah, Peony is actually one of those super fans, right? It was a basketball,
that's
right?
right.
And he was just talking about like how he knew everything about basketball
Yeah.
growing up, and I think he's talked about this at length actually.
Yeah.
And so like, how would you address Peony versus some other casual fan that's new to basketball or the NFL or whatever the sport is? But like, I love that point. Looking ahead, so you're 18 months out from now, if AI worked the way that you hope it does,
Yes.
Ria, what would that look like for your team? How would they be leveraging it? What would it do for you in 18 months if the world was perfect?
Okay, big question there. I think it would be good at the bare minimum to ensure that we are reaching all of our markets in the same way. So not having a priority level and then the rest kind of, we know little or less about them, and so therefore we treat them differently. It would be treating them all with the same granularity and finding headspace and in certain markets, which can then dictate what the output is for those markets. I think we would have more time as a team to be able to step back. I think as a marketer, it's really difficult to step back, evaluate, understand the learnings that you have taken versus what is the next step to do for the next delivery. What is what does it look holistically? How does it look holistically, and how do we then inform any future decisions strategically versus kind of campaign by campaign? And I think it would also mean that we could start to understand behaviours of individuals, not just groups.
1-to-1.
Yes.
I love this.
And if we can start to understand behaviours, we can start to then foresee any life cycle changes, any intent, and we can start we have a multi-subscription organisation, so it may be an upsell opportunity, it may be a cross-sell opportunity, it may be a win-back window where we're starting to look at behaviours on platform, maybe they're starting to re-engage. It will also, give us the ability to understand what channels are best for them, what timeframes are good for them. And so ideally I'd want to see my engagement metrics go up, my conversion metrics go up. I'd want to see, more strategically, I'd want to see kind of areas where we know we need to put more in as an organisation, but not doing much more.
Yes.
I think is the key.
Yes.
But not doing much more. So not needing to hire 10 new people to be able to deliver.
Yeah.
Huge. Paul, anything to add to that? That's an incredible vision.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, a couple of things. Some of the phrases you use about empty software. I mean, I think we've got very strong partners at DAZN who have, as you heard, like Ria say, ambitions and ideas of what they want to achieve. We don't want to have an empty piece of software, and I think we also are aware that our platform is quite, it's got a lot of AI within it. It's got a lot of capability, and I think the key focus for us is to kind of understand the key use cases and then the educational piece to get the right components of the platform unlocking your key use cases. Because, like you said, you don't have time to spend understanding Optimove A to Z, but you have a lot of people on your team that maybe can, and we just have to do a good job at making sure that they're kind of lined up with your key goals and aspirations, and we're helping them understand how to leverage the either AI that we're bringing on stream to get that scale, to get that personalization, to get that one-to-one, because it's possible, I have no doubt. And I think our platform can hopefully take you there. And that's the exciting part of this journey, I think. And that's why we enjoy working with DAZN. I think it's always a challenging day.
I am so excited to see what's coming in the next 18 months, and I really hope this vision here is where things are headed. I love it. Thank you both so much for the conversation. It was lovely chatting with you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.